Welcome to part 2 of the Sleepy Wanderer's journey. Close your eyes, slow your breathing, and allow the gentle path ahead to guide your mind toward rest. Let the quiet magic of the forest carry you softly into sleep. Chapter 17. The gentle quest of the hidden caverns. The village settled into a calm silence after the ceremony of quiet echoes, the trolls moving about their nightly tasks with soft measured steps. Lanterns swayed like sleepy fireflies, and the golden roofs breathed with the rhythm of the faint evening wind. I was sitting on a moss-covered bench with my creature companion curled beside me when the tall troll approached, the one whose deep eyes always held centuries of quiet wisdom. Its shadow stretched long across the soft earth as it lowered itself to sit beside me, the ground rumbling ever so gently under its weight. "You have a calm heart," the troll murmured. "And a calm heart can see things others overlook." I looked at it, waiting, not with excitement, but with the same warm curiosity that had followed me since I first woke at the forest's edge. The tall troll reached into a pouch made of woven bark fibers and withdrew a small stone tablet. The stone shimmered faintly, etched with looping symbols that seemed to shift like drifting clouds. "This," the troll said softly, "is an old map, a map to a quiet treasure." The word treasure didn't land with any spark of greed or urgency. Instead, it felt like the whisper of a forgotten lullaby. The troll placed the stone tablet in my hands. It was surprisingly warm, almost pulsing faintly, like a tiny sleeping heartbeat. "In the valley between the high mountains," the troll continued, "there are deep caverns, peaceful places, slow places. Inside them, hidden long ago, rests something called the Veilstone." My creature companion released a small rising chime. Interest, but gentle, like soft bubbles drifting upward through still water. "What does it do?" I asked softly. The troll's smile deepened the lines of his ancient face. "It grants a simple gift," it said. "Not power, not danger, only quietness. When held close, the Veilstone lets a wanderer step unseen for a moment, whenever they wish. Not a tool for mischief, not a weapon, just a small peaceful aid for the journey. A token," the troll added, "to help you move gently through the world." Another troll approached, the round one with the warm smile, carrying a small pack filled with bread made from moss fruit, a few glowing leaves, and a tiny flask of starroot tea. "You will meet a few beings in the caverns," it said in its soft, rumbly voice. "Odd ones." Its eyes glimmered with fondness. "But kind oddities." That sounded about right for this world. The tall troll tapped the map lightly with a thick finger. "The path is easy," it said. "Follow the misty meadow until the air smells of stone rain. Then look for the arch of sleeping vines. It will guide you in." I nodded, feeling the familiar peace settle around my ribs like a soft band of warmth. I wasn't being sent on a quest. I wasn't being tested. It was simply an invitation, like being asked to gather berries from the far side of the forest. My creature companion bumped its forehead lightly against my leg, releasing a chiming pattern that translated, in a feeling more than words, to "Let's wander there together." The round troll handed me the small pack and patted my shoulder with a careful gentleness that belied its enormous size. "Do not hurry," it said. In the deep caverns, time moves like water in a dreaming river. The tall troll stood slowly, stretching its limbs until they creaked like ancient branches. "When you return," it said, "the village will hum a song of welcome, no matter how long you take." Another young troll toddled forward, holding something wrapped in a bit of woven grass. When I opened it, I found a tiny clay figurine in the shape of a sleeping creature, perhaps meant to be my companion, judging by the long ears and soft curl of its posture. "For company," the little troll whispered shyly. Warmth spread through me again. The village felt like a gentle embrace, not something to leave behind, but something to carry with me. The tall troll pointed toward the pale horizon where the distant mountain peaks glowed faintly under the rising moon. "When you feel ready," the troll said, "the path will open like a slow breath." I stood, pack in hand, map gently glowing in my palm. The creature curled around my feet, then stretched, ringing a tiny chime of anticipation. The trolls gathered quietly behind us, their silhouettes forming a soft, curved wall of warmth and goodwill. "Walk with calm steps," the round troll murmured, "and the world will walk calmly with you." We began moving slowly toward the edge of the village, lantern light fading behind us like sleepy eyes closing for the night. And somewhere in the distance I felt a soft tug, not urgent, not pulling, just a whisper of direction from the deep caverns beneath the mountains, where strange, gentle creatures waited in the quiet dark, and where the Veilstone rested in its ancient cradle. The journey continued slowly, softly, just as it should. Chapter 18. The quiet path to the deep caverns. We left the troll village under a pale early dawn. The air was cool and velvety, as if the morning itself wasn't fully awake yet. My small creature companion trotted beside me, its soft chimes weaving comfortably with the faint rustling of the world waking up. The stone map glowed gently in my hand, not guiding me with urgency, but with a quiet sense of this way, whenever you're ready. The trolls had said the journey to the caverns would be simple, and it truly was, almost surprisingly so. The land seemed to shift itself to make the path shorter, as if the world understood that some wanderers traveled, not for distance, but for gentle discovery. We crossed a meadow filled with short silver grass that brushed softly against my legs. The blades shimmered like moonlight even in daylight, swaying with such slow movements that it felt like watching a field drifting in a dream. A warm mist rolled in, carrying a faint scent like rain that hasn't fallen yet. The stone rain, smell the tall troll had mentioned. My creature companion inhaled deeply, giving a pleased little chiming sigh. Not long after, the mist parted, and there before us stood the arch of sleeping vines. It was beautiful in a quiet way, a tall curved shape, formed of thick vines with large leaves folded down like they were fast asleep. Whenever a breeze passed, the leaves lifted just a little, as though stirring from a dream, then settled again. I ducked under the arch, and as soon as I did, the world seemed to become even calmer. The air felt thicker, softer. Even the sounds grew muted, like a blanket of silence had fallen over everything. The path beyond the arch sloped gently downward. Shadows from the mountains stretched long and smooth, guiding us towards the Valash. Despite how far the caverns had seemed from the troll village, the path felt strangely short, as if each step carried us twice the distance it should have. Not in a rushed way, more like the land was quietly folding itself to help us along. Within only a handful of peaceful minutes, the valley opened before us. Two great mountains rose on either side, their peaks disappearing into a light haze. And nestled between them was the entrance to the caverns, a wide, rounded opening framed by stone pillars shaped naturally like draped curtains. A soft, glowing mist seeped outward from the cave mouth. It wasn't cold or eerie, more like the breath of a sleeping giant, slow, warm, and steady. My companion chimes a gentle rising note. "We're close," the feeling said. I nodded. It felt right. Not exciting, not daunting, just another soft step in a wandering dream. A few round stones lay near the entrance, humming faintly, as if vibrating with a barely audible tone. When I stepped closer, they aligned themselves into a neat little path, inviting me inward. The stone map in my hand warmed, pulsing once. A quiet acknowledgement. The caverns waited, quiet, calm, ancient. And somewhere inside, the veilstone rested in its cradle of deep time. I took a slow breath, letting the gentle air fill my lungs. Then, with my small creature at my side, we stepped into the soft glow of the deep caverns. Chapter 19. Whispers in the Glow Caves. The cavern welcomed us like a great quiet hall, carved out of moonlight. The soft glow inside came from hundreds, maybe thousands, of tiny fungi clinging to the walls. They shone in pale blues and warm violets, pulsing very faintly, like the slow heartbeat of someone peacefully asleep. The air was cool but gentle. Each breath felt like it carried a trace of ancient memories, too soft to understand, but comforting all the same. My creature companion took delicate steps, its little chimes bouncing off the stone and returning in rounded echoes. But those echoes, they didn't come back the same. Some of them sounded slightly shifted, like someone repeating the chimes softly, intentionally, as though answering. I paused, listened. Another soft echo drifted through the cavern, not from my companion, not from me. A light, playful sound, as if someone was gently brushing their fingertips over the edges of a crystal glass. Not threatening, just curious. We moved deeper and found the source. They emerged from behind a cluster of glowing mushrooms, small, round-bodied creatures no taller than my knee. Their skin shimmered like polished stone, mottled with flecks of silver and warm copper. Each one had enormous eyes that reflected the cavern light in swirling patterns. They looked like a mix between owls and river pebbles brought to life. When they blinked, their eyelids made a soft, papery sound. One of them stepped forward and tapped a tiny foot on the ground. The stone beneath it gave off a ting sound, bright and cheerful. My companion replied with its own delicate chime. The little pebble creature's eyes widened, glowing faintly. It tapped the stone again, this time in a different rhythm. A tiny musical phrase, almost like asking a question. I didn't understand the pattern at first, but my new sense, the soft mind-listening ability gifted to me by the moonlit creature earlier in the journey, tugged gently at my awareness. A simple feeling reached me. Who are you? Not spoken, not thought like language, just emotion shaped into meaning. I slowly crouched down, palms open, offering no worry, no rush. "A wanderer," I whispered, "and a friend." The tiny creature tilted its head, then tapped the ground again, softer this time. A ripple of warmth spread from its feet through the stone floor. The feeling that entered my mind was gentle, welcoming. "Friend, welcome." More of the pebble creatures joined, forming a small semicircle around us. Their large eyes blinked in slow, synchronized waves, like lanterns gently dimming and brightening. They seemed fascinated, not by me, but by my presence. Like they sensed the quiet bond I shared with my chiming companion and were soothed by it. One leaned closer and placed a tiny hand on my knee. Its touch was warm and surprisingly soft, like moss warmed by sunlit stone. A new emotion drifted into my thoughts. "You seek the Veilstone." I nodded slowly. The creature blinked, then turned toward a tunnel on the right. Its body began glowing faintly, just enough to outline the way forward. "We show safe path." My chiming companion gave a soft trill of agreement. The pebble creatures waddled ahead of us, their small feet tapping out gentle musical notes, creating a soft, guiding melody that echoed down the glowing tunnel. As we followed, I felt a deep calm settle over me. Not just sleepiness, but a sense of being cared for, held in a world that wanted me to wander safely. Somewhere deeper in the caverns, a faint, warm pulse vibrated through the air, like a distant candle flame flickering in a breeze. The Veilstone. It was near. I could feel it, waiting patiently. With our new glowing guides leading the way, we stepped deeper into the dreamy labyrinth of the glow caves. Chapter 20. The Guardian of the Veilstone Path. The pebble creatures led us deeper into the winding tunnels, their soft, glowing bodies creating moving pockets of light that drifted like lanterns lifted by a gentle breeze. The air grew even calmer the farther we walked, warm in some pockets, cool in others, as though the cavern itself was exhaling in slow, rhythmic breaths. My senses, still touched by the creature's earlier gift, could feel faint emotional traces in the stone. Not messages, more like the lingering warmth of someone having passed their hand across a piano key long ago. Softness, patience, old deep kindness. We were getting close. A low, rounded hum vibrated through the floor, not threatening, more like someone humming to themselves while half asleep. My little chiming friend paused, ears lifting. The pebble creatures all stopped in unison, their eyes widening just a bit. Not with fear, but with a kind of reverent respect. One of them reached out and lightly tapped my boot. "Big one, listens." A feeling whispered into my mind. From the tunnel ahead, the hum grew slightly louder. And then, emerging from the deeper shadows, a figure appeared. At first, it looked like a slowly moving hill of stone. But as it approached, I began to see its shape. A massive creature, perhaps 3 times my height, formed from smooth, rounded rock plates stacked like layers of clay. Long, gentle arms hung at its sides, ending in wide hands shaped, almost like shallow bowls. Its head was large and oval, with 2 deep-set eyes glowing softly, like the embers of a dying fire. Warm, steady, ancient. When it stepped, the earth didn't shake violently. Instead, it rolled through the stone like a soft wave, comforting and steady. The pebble creatures bowed their heads. The tiniest motion, like blades of grass stirred by a faint breeze. My chiming companion made a low, respectful note in response. The great stone guardian stopped a few steps away from me. It leaned slightly forward, its ember eyes studying me without urgency. Warmth seeped into my mind, a feeling, slow, deep, gentle, wanderer. You seek the Veilstone, but not for greed. I swallowed softly, nodding. I don't even know what it will truly do, I whispered. Only that I was asked to find it, and I feel that it's part of the path I'm meant to walk. The guardian's eyes glowed a little brighter, not intensely, but like a candle being cupped by kind hands. Another emotion drifted through me. Curiosity, heart light, safe. The guardian slowly lowered one of its enormous hands. It placed its palm on the floor, facing upward. An invitation, not a command. My chiming companion stepped onto the broad stone palm without hesitation. It turned to me, chimed once, and then sat calmly as if to say, "It's all right. Come along." I stepped onto the guardian's palm beside my companion. The stone beneath my feet was surprisingly warm, like a sunlit rock beside a river. The guardian lifted us with a smooth, steady motion, placing us carefully onto its shoulder. From here, the cavern stretched out like a dimly lit dreamscape of glowing fungi and slow-breathing walls. The pebble creatures hummed in unison as the guardian began to walk. Not singing, just sending out soft tones that blended with the guardian's low hum. A wave of drowsy calm washed over me. The guardian carried us through a wider tunnel, the ceiling arching high above, like the ribs of a great sleeping beast. As we moved deeper, the faint glow of the Veilstone began to flicker ahead. Not bright, but warm, like morning sunlight caught in a single drop of dew. The guardian slowed to a gentle stop. It touched the cavern wall with its free hand. The stone opened like soft clay, revealing a round chamber beyond, shimmering with golden mist. "Veilstone waits," drifted the guardian's voice into my mind, a slow, peaceful whisper of emotion and warmth. I felt no danger, only quiet anticipation. With the guardian's help, I stepped down from its shoulder, my small chiming friend hopping lightly beside me. Ahead of us, the soft golden glow of the Veilstone filled the chamber like the light of a warm distant sunrise. Chapter 21. The Light Beneath the Mountain. The chamber beyond the guardian's hand felt like stepping into a warm, glowing dream. A soft golden haze floated through the air, drifting lazily like dust motes in a sunbeam. It made everything look a little blurred at the edges, a little softer, as if nothing inside this room could ever move too quickly or too sharply. The ground beneath my feet was smooth stone, worn down over ages into gentle curves. When I stepped forward, a faint warmth rose through the soles of my boots, spreading upward like a slow exhale. My chiming companion walked slightly ahead, its tiny feet tapping soft notes on the stone. Each note echoed strangely, not outward, but inward, like the sound was being pulled gently toward the center of the chamber. And there it was, the Veilstone. It stood on a small stone pedestal shaped like cupped hands. Not a chest, not a jewel, not a glittering treasure like the troll stories had hinted. Just a smooth round stone, no larger than an apple, glowing with a soft inner light that shifted in slow waves from gold to amber to pale rose. It wasn't bright enough to illuminate the room, yet it made everything feel warmer, as though the chamber itself was smiling. I stepped closer, and as I did, the golden mist responded. It swirled gently around me, wrapping around my shoulders like a shawl of heated silk. A faint sensation drifted into my mind. Not a word. Not even an emotion. More like a slow nod of recognition. The Veilstone was aware. Not alive in a creature sense, but aware in the way a long-forgotten lullaby is aware of soothing whoever hears it. My creature companion chimed a soft note, and the Veilstone answered with a deep, velvety hum that resonated like the last note of a harp string. I felt it in my chest, calm. A calm so deep it felt like sinking into warm water. The stone guardian stood in the doorway behind us, watching with quiet patience. A soft, emotional whisper brushed against my mind. Touch, only if you feel called. I approached the pedestal slowly. Not out of fear, there was no fear here, but out of respect for the quiet stillness in the room. When I reached out my hand, the air around the Veilstone warmed further, like stepping close to a campfire that had been burning gently for hours. My fingertips brushed its surface. It was warm, smoother than glass. And suddenly, not a flash, not a jolt, but a gentle, vast quiet swept through me. All sounds faded, all movement settled. It felt like the world stopped, not in darkness, but in light. I saw nothing, and yet, everything. A feeling rose, clear as ripples in a still pond. You walk between worlds. You see with kindness. We know your heart, wanderer. The warmth deepened. Take us with you. I blinked softly. The chamber returned. The soft golden haze drifted again. My chiming friend nuzzled my leg with a curious little trill. The Veilstone now glowed slightly brighter under my hand, almost purring. Carefully, I lifted it from the pedestal. It was lighter than expected, like holding an empty shell warmed by the sun. But the moment I did, the entire cavern seemed to breathe. The air brightened. The guardian's ember eyes glowed warmly. The pebble creature's faint songs echoed gently in the distance. The golden mist swirled around me once more, then slowly faded into the walls, like it had settled back into sleep. With the Veilstone resting in my palms, a gentle emotion pressed itself into my thoughts. Safe, carried by warm hands. Going home. I let out a slow breath I didn't realize I was holding. This wasn't a weapon, not a tool, not even a treasure. It was a quiet companion, a piece of the mountain's oldest, kindest dream. My chiming friend danced lightly in a circle, clearly delighted. The guardian bowed its massive head. The path forward felt clear, not urgent, not demanding, just softly illuminated. Chapter 22. The Veilstone's First Whispers. The cavern felt different as I began the slow walk back toward the Guardian. Not brighter, not louder, just quieter in a way that sank gently into my chest. My little chiming companion padded beside me, occasionally glancing up at the Veilstone resting in my hands. Its inner glow shifted in warm pulses, almost like it was breathing along with me. The massive stone guardian waited in the archway, its ember eyes glowing softly. When I approached, it lowered its head in the same slow, respectful bow as before. A single feeling drifted into my mind. "It has chosen you." I nodded, though the weight of those words wasn't heavy. It was like being wrapped in a blanket someone had warmed for me by a fire. As we stepped past the Guardian, the cavern tunnel brightened just slightly, responding to the Veilstone's glow. The golden light didn't push away the darkness. Instead, it softened the shadows, turning them gentle and round-edged. My creature companion hummed a series of tones. Not speech, more like curiosity made into sound. I smiled down at it. "Yes," I whispered. "It feels different now." And it did. With each step, the air carried small, shimmering particles that drifted upward like tiny flecks of floating gold. They hovered briefly, then dissolved into nothing, like they had completed their purpose simply by appearing. The pebble creatures re-emerged as we neared the bend in the tunnel. Only now, something remarkable happened. When their wide eyes landed on the Veilstone, their bodies lit up, soft shades of peach and pale yellow rippling across their skin. They gave out tiny musical notes, all in the same gentle key, like a miniature choir, greeting an old friend. One of them waddled forward and touched the Veilstone lightly, with a small, rounded hand. I felt a feeling stir inside the stone, gliding softly into my awareness. "Hello, little ones." The pebble creature blinked up at me, but the emotion wasn't coming from it. It was from the Veilstone. A quiet realization settled into me like warm sand slipping between fingers. I wasn't just holding it. It was speaking, softly, slowly, through impressions that traveled into my mind. Not thoughts, not commands, just warmth, shaped as meaning. My chiming companion trilled a delighted note and pressed its small head briefly against my leg. We continued walking until the pebble creatures stood aside, giving us a wide, respectful path. As I passed, each one dipped its head, a gesture so subtle and slow it felt like they were bowing through syrup. The golden motes drifting from the Veilstone floated toward them. When they touched the pebble creatures' surfaces, the tiny beings shimmered with joy, a soft, glowing emotion that washed gently against my mind. The Veilstone hummed faintly, warm and pleased. When we reached the sleeping vine archway, something unexpected happened. The moment I approached, the leaves of the arch lifted, opening slowly, like eyelids greeting morning light. A faint rustle, gentle as silk, brushing over stone, swept through the air. Then the vines glowed, not brightly, just enough for their veins to shine like threads of moonlight. My breath caught softly, not in shock, but in the way one reacts when something deeply comforting reveals itself. The Veilstone pulsed in my palms, and suddenly I felt something, a soft ripple of perception extending outward. I could sense the breeze, not as touch, but as emotion. I could sense the plants in the archway, faint, dreamlike whispers of awareness, not words, more like quiet greetings from beings that lived on sunlight and stillness. And for a moment, just a brief moment, the world felt as though it had blurred at the edges, and I felt weightless. My boots barely touched the ground. Each step felt like walking on the surface of warm mist. My chiming companion chirped excitedly, jumping into the air, and floating for a second longer than it should have. as if the Veilstone's presence softened the world's pull. It wasn't flying, I wasn't floating, just a brief suspension, a gentle release, like the world exhaled and let us rise for a heartbeat. The sensation faded as softly as it came, but it left a warm glow behind in my chest. A gentle voice, warm and distant, drifted into my mind. More will come as you wander. Gifts grow with quiet steps. I smiled softly. Not excited, not eager, just deeply calm. Whatever lay ahead, the Veilstone would guide, not with power or force, but with warmth and understanding. We stepped through the glowing archway, out of the cavern's quiet heart, and into the soft light of the valley beyond, and the journey continued. Chapter 23, The Whispering Lightfall. The wanderer continued walking along the winding path that led out of the shimmering caves. The stone under his feet gradually changed from cool crystal to warm, earthen ground. As he stepped outside, a gentle breeze met him. Warm, fragrant, carrying the scent of blooming meadow herbs. The landscape before him was dreamlike. A valley stretched out, soft and golden, dotted with pale flowers that swayed as if whispering to one another. Above them, small insects drifted like floating lanterns, glowing faintly in pastel shades of blue, peach, and lavender. Each movement of their delicate wings left trails of light that dissolved in the air like sighing breath. The wanderer felt a pleasant warmth bloom in his chest. The gift from the oracle. Being still pulsed gently within him, as if it resonated with everything peaceful around him. Occasionally, he could still catch faint thoughts drifting from nearby creatures. Sleepy, harmless, slow thoughts about nectar, sunshine, and the joy of floating. He continued forward until he heard a new sound, a gentle, cascading hum, like distant rain. But the sky was clear. Following the sound, he eventually came upon it, a waterfall made entirely of glowing mist. It descended from a low cliff in shimmering strands, each thread of light weaving together as they fell, as if the waterfall were made not of water, but of silk spun from moonlight. The sound was calming beyond words, soft, steady, rhythmic, a perfect lullaby. He approached, mesmerized. The moment he stepped closer, tiny motes of light rose from the luminous curtain and drifted around him, brushing lightly against his skin like down feathers. The thoughts he heard from them were even softer, drifting, glowing, resting, drifting. Their simple, peaceful minds quieted went on even further. Beneath the glowing veil was a smooth stone ledge, and the wanderer sat there, feeling the faint warmth of the lightfall against his back. He rested for a long while, perhaps minutes, perhaps hours. Time moved slower here, like a sleepy river. Eventually, he noticed something unusual. Behind the glowing lightfall, something was etched onto the stone wall. Symbols, faint but shimmering. Curious, he stood and reached a hand through the soft mist. The symbols lit up, one by one, as if sensing his presence. He couldn't read them, but he felt them. They spoke not in words, but in sensation, a welcoming warmth, a soft invitation, a sense of gentle guidance. It was as though the valley itself was showing him the way. The symbols glowed brighter for a moment, and a small path of light appeared at the waterfall's base. trail that hadn't been visible before. A new path, a quiet invitation. The wanderer smiled softly. Every step of this journey revealed new wonders, each more soothing than the last. And with a calm breath, he followed the glowing trail as it led him deeper into the tranquil valley, toward whatever peaceful mystery awaited him next. Chapter 23. The Meadow of Floating Echoes. The glowing trail led the wanderer gently across the valley floor, winding between soft clusters of pale flowers. The sky above had begun to shift subtly, the light turning a warm gold, yet without any harshness. It was the kind of light that made everything appear softer around the edges, as though the world itself was settling into a quiet afternoon dream. As he walked, he noticed the air becoming lighter, almost buoyant. The breeze carried faint hums, like echoes of distant voices, but not voices of people. More like the memories of voices. Soft, feather light, floating through the warm air. He followed the sound until he reached a wide, dusky green meadow filled with shimmering threads, drifting softly above the ground. They looked like thin ribbons of mist, but each one resonated with a gentle tone, tiny notes that rose and fell as they swayed. The wanderer stepped closer, and as one of the drifting threads brushed against his arm, he felt a subtle vibration run through him. Not unsettling, more like the feeling of a warm cat purring against his hand. Comforting, steady, calming. Then he heard it more clearly. A faint echo of his own footsteps returning to him from somewhere distant, but slowed, softened, stretched out, as if the meadow absorbed the energy of each sound and returned it like a quiet, dreamy reflection. He tried humming softly. The meadow responded. A chorus of delicate hums rose around him, repeating his gentle tune, but transforming it into something slower, smoother, as if the meadow were turning his voice into a lullaby. He chuckled softly, and the meadow echoed his laugh in the same way, slower, warmer, dissolving into a calming vibration that seemed to settle directly into his chest. He walked further, exploring the strange echoing field. At times, he lifted one of the drifting threads of mist, watching it coil around his fingers like a curious ribbon, before floating away again. They had no weight, only warmth and softness. As he wandered, he noticed small creatures moving between the tall grass. Round, fuzzy creatures with tiny feet and overly long ears that swayed gently as they hopped. They appeared startled at first, wide, glassy eyes staring up at him. But then, sensing his calm and the soft aura he carried from earlier gifts, they relaxed. One approached him, its thoughts drifting toward him like slow-moving bubbles. Warm, gentle, traveler, no fear, follow. The creature hopped a few steps forward, then turned back to look at him, as if guiding him somewhere. The wanderer followed with a peaceful curiosity. The fussy creature led him to a wide clearing where dozens of its kind rested in small groups, curled into soft piles of fur. Some were humming tiny notes that floated into the meadow's echoing strands, making the air shimmer with layered lullabies. The guide creature nudged its head against the wanderer's leg, inviting him to sit. He lowered himself into the soft grass, and immediately several of the echoing mist ribbons drifted down toward him, as if drawn to his presence. They wrapped loosely around him, humming softly. A calm warmth spread across his shoulders and arms, like someone laying a gentle blanket over him. A deep peace settled over his thoughts, and for a brief moment, he felt as though he could drift off to sleep right there, surrounded by these soft creatures and the drifting lullaby echoes. But before sleep could claim him, a new sound emerged far ahead, distant, subtle, like a bell made of wind. The creatures lifted their ears, not alarmed, just attentive. The wanderer rose slowly, giving them a soft smile of thanks. The gentle bell tone called again. Another path awaited him, and with a relaxed breath, he stepped forward once more, ready to continue his tranquil journey through the dreamlike world. Chapter 24. The silver wind chimes. The wanderer followed the faint, airy bell tone as it drifted across the meadow. The sound was soft but unmistakable, like a single note carried gently on the wind, calling him forward with a peaceful purpose. Each time he paused, the tone returned, not urgent, but patient, as if waiting for him to continue at his own calm pace. The path led him toward a small rise in the land, where the tall meadow grasses shifted into shorter, softer moss that cushioned his steps. As he climbed the gentle slope, the wind grew slightly cooler, brushing against his face with the delicate touch of early morning air. At the top of the rise, he saw them. Dozens of pale silver strands hung from nothing at all, floating in the open air, swaying as if suspended from invisible branches. They were long and slender, shimmering faintly with every movement, producing soft chime tones whenever the breeze passed through them. The sound was incredibly gentle, almost fragile, yet it filled the entire clearing with a soothing harmony. It was like walking into a dream made of music. As he approached, the chimes reacted to him. Some tilted toward him, releasing faint notes that sounded almost like greetings. Others drifted aside, clearing a space for him as though inviting him to step deeper into their midst. He moved slowly, letting the soft tones wash over him. The silver strands brushed lightly against his arms and shoulders, leaving cool, pleasant tingles on his skin. He felt the peaceful hum of their presence slide into his thoughts, quieting them even further. When he stood among the chimes, the world seemed to fall into a slow, tranquil rhythm. The sound of the wind became softer. The distant hum from the echoing meadow behind him faded to a whisper. Everything focused into the delicate chorus of the chimes around him. And then, something unexpected happened. One of the chimes drifted closer, far closer than the others. It hovered right in front of his face, glowing with a soft, pearly light. He felt its presence touch the calm gift inside him, the gentle energy given by the oracle being. The chime resonated in a single elongated tone. Not loud, not sharp, just pure. The sound moved through him like a ripple of cool water, and with it, he felt something awaken, a new sense, warm and airy, like a faint breeze moving inside his chest. He suddenly understood the chime, not in words, but in feeling. Travel safely, the resonance seemed to say. Carry calmness with you. Carry stillness. Another note followed, even softer. And when the wind speaks, listen. The wanderer nodded instinctively, as though the meaning had settled into him, like a feather drifting to rest. As he breathed, He felt lighter, physically lighter, as though the air inside him had grown brighter, gentler. The chime touched his forehead with the faintest tap of cool wind, and then it drifted back to rejoin the others. He took one last moment to stand among them, letting their soft harmony fill him completely. The peaceful tones settled into his bones, a quiet melody he felt he would carry forever. When he stepped away from the clearing, the wind behind him released a final soft chime, like a goodbye whispered through silver. He smiled. The journey continued, and now, carried by the gift of the silver wind chimes, he walked onward with a new serene lightness in every step. Chapter 25. The Valley of Drowsing Lanterns. Leaving the silver wind chimes behind, the wanderer followed a narrow path that gently descended from the hill. The world around him shifted once again, not abruptly, but slowly, like a dream changing scenes without ever disturbing the sleeper. The air grew warmer, carrying with it a soft, sweet fragrance, something like warm tea mixed with faint honey. The ground became velvety under his feet, covered in tiny moss flowers that glowed a muted apricot color beneath each step. As he continued, a soft light appeared ahead, not bright, not sharp, but warm, like the glow of a lantern placed behind thick silk. Soon, he arrived at a wide valley filled with floating orbs of golden light. They drifted lazily through the air, rising and falling in slow, sleepy patterns. Each one pulsed gently, as if breathing, softly brightening, then dimming. The valley felt alive, peaceful, and deeply comforting. The wanderer reached out toward one of the glowing orbs. It drifted nearer, hovering just inches from his hand. Its light felt warm, but in a quiet way, like sunlight filtered through a blanket on a winter morning. Then he heard them. Not words, not even thoughts, just feelings. Soft impressions drifting from the lanterns like warm exhalations. Rest, soften, slow. The orbs weren't conscious in the way creatures were. They were more like drifting dreams, gentle clusters of calm made visible. He walked slowly among them, feeling as though he were wandering through a sky full of miniature suns, all half asleep. Some dipped down low, brushing his shoulders. Others rose above him, leaving glowing trails that faded into the air like fireflies drifting into slumber. At the center of the valley, he found a shallow pool of still water. The lanterns hovered above it, reflecting softly in the mirror-like surface. The reflections rippled slightly, even though no wind touched the water. He knelt by the edge. As he stared at his reflection, something extraordinary happened. The reflection began to glow, softly, faintly, just like the lanterns above. For a moment, he saw himself shimmering with their warm light, as if the calmness of the valley was sinking gently into him. He closed his eyes. The warmth settled in deeper, embracing him with a serene heaviness that felt like being wrapped in a thick, comforting blanket. And then, a new, strange sensation touched him, a sudden lightness beneath his feet. He opened his eyes slowly. He was floating, only a few inches above the ground, but undeniably, softly, steadily floating. The lanterns seemed to respond to this, drifting closer in slow circular motions, their warm pulses sinking with the gentle weightlessness he now felt. The wanderer laughed very softly, the sound barely above a whisper. His body felt like a feather resting on a breeze. Then came a gentle impression from the lanterns. Not forever, just for calm. And he understood. This was another quiet gift of the world, temporary, gentle, meant only to soothe, not to change him permanently, but to comfort him along his journey. After a minute or two, he slowly descended back to the soft moss, settling once again on solid ground. He bowed his head slightly to the lanterns, not out of formality, but gratitude. As he left the glowing valley, the lanterns drifted behind him in quiet spirals, their soft pulses dimming in a rhythm, like a lullaby fading into the night. The path ahead was lined with more of the apricot glowing moss, guiding him onward, deeper into this world of dreams and gentle wonders. Chapter 26. The gentle name in the wind. The wanderer walked along the glowing moss path, still feeling the soft echo of weightlessness tingling in his limbs. The valley of lanterns faded behind him, leaving only a warm memory of drifting light and peaceful stillness. Beside him, as always, padded his small, fussy companion, the creature with long ears, soft round body, and thoughtful glassy eyes. It hopped occasionally, its ears bobbing gently, always staying close, but never demanding attention. They had been together for quite some time now, through meadows, through forests, through glowing caves, always quiet, always steady. But the wanderer realized he didn't know its name, not because it had never spoken, but because neither of them had ever needed words between them. Still, a small curiosity drifted through his mind, gentle and warm, a simple wondering, who are you really? The creature paused mid-step. It tilted its head slightly, as if sensing his thought. For a moment, the wind swirled softly around them, carrying with it a distant hum, perhaps from the silver wind chimes, or perhaps simply from the valley itself, humming in memory. The creature's large eyes slowly brightened with a faint inner glow. Then, drifting gently into the wanderer's mind, came a soft, slow impression, slower than words, deeper than sound, a name, not spoken, not formed in letters, but felt. Miro. The wanderer breathed in gently, letting the name resonate within him. Miro. It felt exactly right, soft around the edges, simple, warm. A name carried like a whisper in the wind. Miro hopped closer, brushing its head lightly against the wanderer's leg. The gesture wasn't urgent or excited. It was calm, affectionate, content. The wanderer smiled and placed a gentle hand on Miro's soft fur. "Thank you," he whispered, though he knew Miro needed no words to understand. As they continued down the path, something new had settled between them. Not louder, not brighter, just deeper, a shared understanding. The moss-lined trail soon led them toward a cluster of tall, pale trees with smooth, cream-colored bark. Their canopies swayed in unison, leaves shimmering like tiny silver flakes. The air beneath them smelled faintly of cool rain and warm herbs. Miro padded ahead, ears perked, leading with a kind of soft excitement. Not urgent, just anticipatory, as though something peaceful and welcoming waited ahead. A distant glow flickered through the trees, soft, steady, rhythmic. The wanderer followed, feeling the forest lighten around him, the quiet deepening in a way that suggested rest, comfort, and new gentle encounters. With Miro's name now known, whispered into his mind like a secret carried by the world, the journey felt even more connected, even more serene. And together, they stepped into the silver-leafed grove, ready for whatever calm wonder awaited them next. Chapter 27. The Grove of Resting Silver Leaves. As the wanderer and Miro stepped deeper into the pale forest, the world around them grew even quieter. Not silent, but softly hushed, like a library made of drifting wind and drowsy trees. Each step they took landed gently on the cool, velvety soil, which gave slightly underfoot, as though the ground itself wished to cushion their journey. Sunlight filtered through the canopy above, turning into slow-moving beams of silver. They drifted like columns of shimmering mist, each one shifting calmly as the branches swayed. Whenever a breeze stirred the leaves, countless tiny flakes of silver drifted downward, spiraling to the ground like falling snow made of moonlight. Miro paused to watch them, his long ears lifting in quiet fascination. The flakes touched his fur and dissolved into faint sparks, as gentle as sighs. The wanderer reached out his hand. A single leaf flake landed on his palm, cool and soft. It melted into a small ripple of warmth that traveled up his arm and settled in his chest like a soothing breath. He felt the grove welcoming him. Further ahead, the forest opened into a wide circular clearing. The earth there was smooth and soft, covered in a layer of silver leaf flakes that resembled a blanket of shimmering frost. But it was warm and comforting. In the center stood a single large tree, taller and older than the rest. Its trunk was pale gold, its branches thick and gently curved. Instead of leaves, its canopy held hundreds of softly glowing orbs, like tiny moons suspended in the branches, pulsing slowly in warm cycles of light. The tree felt alive, not just in appearance, but in presence. A calm, ancient energy radiated from it, but nothing intimidating. It was the feeling of a guardian watching over a resting place, a being of peace. As the wanderer approached, the soft pulsing of the orbs aligned with his heartbeat. Slow, steady, comforting. The ground beneath the tree was especially warm. It seemed made for resting. Miro nudged him gently, as if encouraging him to sit. So he did. The moment he settled onto the soft layer of silver leaves, a wave of tranquility washed over him. It felt like the forest exhaled, relaxing fully now that he was part of it. Soft whispers drifted from the glowing orbs above, thoughts not quite formed, but carrying impressions. Rest a while. Drift softly. The journey continues, but not now. The wanderer leaned back, letting his palms sink into the warm silvery ground. His eyelids felt heavy, but not in a forced way. Simply peaceful. Miro curled up beside him, pressing its warm body against the wanderer's leg. Its gentle thoughts reached him like tiny waves. Safe. Here. Soft. Peaceful. The wanderer closed his eyes just for a moment. The tree's glowing orbs brightened slightly, then dimmed as though singing a lullaby made of light. faint breeze stirred the canopy, causing flakes of silver leaves to drift down onto his hair and shoulders, each one melting softly into tingles that lulled his mind even further. He didn't sleep, not fully, but he drifted in a quiet place between dreaming and waking, where thoughts slowed down to match the rhythm of a calm heart. Time passed gently, unhurried. Eventually, the light around him shifted, growing warmer, suggesting the grove sensed he was ready to move again. He opened his eyes slowly and found Miro already awake, looking up at him with serene curiosity. The wanderer exhaled softly, feeling renewed, light, rested, deeply calm. He placed a hand on Miro's head, giving it a gentle pat. "Shall we?" he murmured. Miro's ears lifted, and it hopped forward, leading him once again toward the next soft wonder waiting in this dreamlike land. Together, they stepped out of the resting grove, back into the shimmering forest where the light danced like moving silver rain. Chapter 28. The Murmuring Roots. Leaving the grove, the wanderer and Miro followed a slender forest path that wove gently between the tall, pale trees. The silver flakes on the ground glimmered softly under their steps, creating a faint shimmer with every movement. The air was cool and smooth, like the breath of early dawn, and each inhalation filled the wanderer with subtle calm. The deeper they walked, the more the forest seemed to lean inward, its branches arching overhead, until they formed a natural tunnel of pale light and shadow. The canopy dimmed slightly, not becoming dark, but softer, like a lantern covered by a gentle veil. Eventually, the wanderer noticed the sound, a low murmur, almost like distant conversation, but slow, very slow, as though spoken by beings who had all the time in the world. Miro paused, ears twitching, listening. The wanderer followed the sound down the path until the trees opened into a narrow glade, their roots exposed above the ground in thick, twisting patterns. The roots did not appear chaotic or tangled. Instead, they formed loops and curves that looked almost intentional, like soft spirals drawn into the earth. The murmuring grew clearer. It wasn't voices exactly, more like vibrations, resonating faintly through the roots, rising from deep underground. The wanderer knelt and placed a hand on one of the thick, warm roots. Immediately he felt it, a gentle rhythm pulsing slowly beneath his palm. A calm heartbeat, but older, much older. And through it, impressions drifted into his mind, as soft as dust on a breeze. We have seen ages. We remember the quiet things. Traveler, rest your thoughts here. He sat down beside the great roots, letting his fingers trace their smooth curves. As he touched them, tiny sparks of soft golden light glowed beneath the bark, pulsing gently in time with the murmurs. Miro curled up beside him, pressing close to the warmth of the living roots. Its thoughts drifted lazily toward him, calm, drowsy, reflecting the peaceful energy of the glade. The wanderer felt a subtle sensation moved through the roots into his fingertips, a quiet deepening of his awareness, not sharper, softer, like hearing the world breathe. The murmuring shifted, becoming more focused, as if the forest itself wished to communicate something small but meaningful. Every step you take becomes part of the quiet. Every place you rest remembers you. Walk gently, and the world will guide you. The wanderer bowed his head slightly, feeling gratitude for the ancient presence beneath him. Then, something unexpected happened. A thin root, small and delicate, rose from the ground, curling upward like a tendril of soft vine. It touched the wanderer lightly on the wrist. The sensation was warm and airy, sending a tiny ripple of calm through his body. When it withdrew, a faint golden marking remained on his skin. Nothing sharp or bright, just a gentle shimmer shaped like a slow-moving spiral. A small gift, a quiet blessing. He understood the meaning without needing words. Whenever you lose your way, breathe slowly, and the earth will whisper the path. The marking pulsed once, then faded into a subtle glow. Miro hopped forward and touched the root with his nose, receiving a tiny spark of warm light on its forehead. It squeaked softly, not startled, just pleasantly surprised. The murmuring roots quieted, their message complete. The wanderer stood, placing one gentle hand on the roots in farewell. The forest seemed to nod, its branches swaying in a slow, approving rhythm. With Miro trotting faithfully at his side, he stepped out of the glade and back onto the winding forest path, feeling a new steadiness in his steps, guided, grounded, and deeply at peace. Chapter 29. The Bridge of Softly Spilling Mist. The forest path continued in gentle curves, winding between the pale trees whose leaves shimmered like quiet silver rain. The wanderer walked slowly, his steps calm, his breathing deep and steady. Beside him, Miro padded along with soft, almost silent hops, its long ears swaying peacefully with each movement. After some time, the trees began to thin. The canopy opened, letting warm light spill through in soft patches that drifted across the ground. The path broadened, revealing a gentle downward slope, leading into a hollow filled with hazy white mist. The mist was different from the glowing fog of earlier places. This mist was softer, heavier, and moved in slow currents, like water flowing over stones. As they approached, the wanderer saw the source of the mist. A small arched bridge stretched across a narrow ravine, its surface made of smooth, pearly stone. From its sides, long veils of mist dripped downward, cascading like waterfalls made of clouds. The sight was calming, dreamlike, and strangely inviting. Miro stopped at the base of the bridge and sniffed the air. Its thoughts reached the wanderer in a quiet hum. Safe, calm, go. So they stepped onto the bridge. The stone was cool beneath their feet, but not cold. Each step caused a delicate ripple in the mist, as though the bridge responded to their presence by releasing more soft vapor into the air. Halfway across, something subtle shifted. The mist around them thickened just slightly, becoming warm and embracing, like stepping into a gentle, comforting bath of cloud. The outside world faded into soft shapes, leaving only the bridge, the wanderer, and Miro drifting in a field of pale light. And then the mist began to whisper, not with voices, not with thoughts, but with memories. The wanderer heard faint echoes, dreamlike impressions of places he had visited on this journey. The drowsing Lantern Valley, the echoing meadow, the glowing caves, all drifting past him in softened, hazy form. The mist was showing him the journey so far, but not as a story, just as calming moods and feelings. Warmth, softness, curiosity, peace. The memories flowed around him like a slow, shimmering river of sensation. He felt no pull forward or backward, just stillness, just presence. Miro sensed it too, and gave a quiet, contented trill, hopping into a thicker patch of mist and sending little clouds swirling into the air. The wanderer reached out gently. The mist responded, curling around his fingers like soft wool, glowing faintly with gentle pulses of light. He could sense something within the mist, something like a question. Not spoken, not urgent, just a soft wondering. Do you choose calm? The wanderer did not answer with words. He closed his eyes and breathed deeply. The mist warmed around him, accepting his silent answer. A slow breeze began to push the haze aside, revealing the far end of the bridge. As the mist thinned, the last whisper drifted past him, lighter than a sigh. Then calm will go with you. The wanderer stepped off the bridge, feeling the warmth of the mist settle into him, like a quiet glow beneath his ribs. The marking on his wrist, given by the murmuring roots, pulsed softly, as though acknowledging the new gift. Miro hopped in circles at the base of the bridge, energized despite the tranquility. Its ears twitched with gentle excitement as it nudged the wanderer forward, ready for what came next. Before them stretched a new landscape, hills covered in soft violet grass, swaying slowly as though moved by a dream. Together they walked on, leaving the bridge of mist behind them, as its whiteness drifted upward like a peaceful exhale disappearing into the sky. Chapter 30. The Whispering Orchard. The trail out of the glimmering meadow grew softer beneath his steps, the ground turning springy and fragrant, as if the earth itself had been gently warmed by afternoon sun. Lorian padded alongside him, the small creature's tail swaying in a relaxed rhythm. Neither of them spoke for a while. They didn't need to. There was a comfortable, effortless silence between them now, like two melodies that naturally harmonized. Ahead, the land dipped into a shallow valley filled with pale silver trees. Their leaves shimmered as if dusted with crushed moonlight. The trunks were twisted in gentle spirals, and every time a breeze passed through them, the branches emitted a soft chiming tone, almost like wind passing over crystal flutes. The wanderer paused at the edge of the grove, listening. The sound was peaceful, slow, and strangely melodic. Not quite music, not quite wind, but something in between. Lorian hopped up onto a low branch and glanced back. "This," the creature said, voice barely above a whisper, "is the Whispering Orchard. It's one of the oldest places in these lands. The trees grow from memories, and they keep growing as long as someone remembers something worth treasuring." The wanderer stepped inside, drawn by a sensation he couldn't name. The air felt cool on his skin, cool but comforting, like dipping one's hands into a stream at night. He brushed his fingers along a trunk, and the bark was unexpectedly warm and pulsing softly, as though the tree was breathing. He closed his eyes, and a sudden gentle hum filled his mind, a feeling, not a sound, a memory, not his own. A child's laughter, the smell of baked bread, the sensation of being lifted onto someone's shoulders to see fireworks sparkle in the sky. He opened his eyes again, startled, only for a moment. Then he smiled. "They share memories with those who listen," Lorian said, curling its tiny paws around the branch. "But only the calm ones, only the ones made to soothe." The wanderer walked deeper into the orchard, letting the soft chiming leaves form a slow, drifting melody around him. The path was narrow, but lined with moss that glowed faintly with pale blue light. Here and there, small round fruits hung from the branches, each one luminous like floating lanterns. "What are those?" he asked. Lorian hopped down, sniffing one delicately. "They're called dream pearls. When eaten, they help one sleep without fear or restlessness. The trolls brew them into tea before their winter festivals." The wanderer plucked one carefully. It was warm and heavier than it looked. He took a bite. The fruit was unbelievably soft, almost cloud-like, and tasted faintly of honey and cool rain. As he swallowed, he felt a calm settle through him, like a blanket being placed gently across his shoulders. His steps slowed, his breaths deepened, and the orchard's chiming seemed to grow even softer, as though it adjusted itself to match the rhythm of his heartbeat. They walked until they reached a clearing at the orchard's center. In the middle stood a single ancient tree, the tallest of them all. Its trunk was thick and deeply grooved, and its leaves glowed a gentle gold rather than silver. Lorian bowed its head respectfully. "That's the elder tree," he whispered. "Every memory in this orchard begins there." The wanderer approached. He didn't touch it at first. He simply stood before it, letting the warm golden glow wash over him like morning sunlight. And then a voice entered his mind. Not spoken aloud, not even formed with words. Just a feeling, a calm presence, like a hand resting lightly on his shoulder. "Welcome, traveler. Your path is still long, but your spirit is gentle. Take what peace you need from this place, and carry it with you into the mountains, the rivers, and the dreams yet to come." The wanderer exhaled slowly, deeply. The orchard swayed around him in a soft breeze, the chiming tones drifting like distant lullabies. The elder tree's presence faded gently, like a thought slipping into the quiet part of the mind reserved for warmth and safety. He looked at Lorian. "I didn't expect any of this," he murmured. "That's the best part," Lorian replied. "The magic here never demands anything from you. It only gives." They sat beneath the golden branches for a long while. Neither spoke. Birds with long trailing feathers glided between the trees, their wings silent and slow. Tiny floating spores drifted like faint stars. The orchard felt utterly removed from time itself, as though hours might pass or only minutes. Eventually, the wanderer rose, his energy restored but softened. He gave the elder tree a quiet nod of gratitude. Then he and Lorian continued down the path, leaving the whispering orchard behind. The chiming faded gradually until it was only a faint echo, like a lullaby remembered just before falling asleep. Chapter 31. The Valley of Slow Time. The path descending from the whispering orchard curved gently into a wide, open valley. Unlike the shimmering groves or the lantern-lit hills he had walked through before, this place felt still, not empty, just unhurried, as though the air itself preferred to move at its own quiet pace. A soft haze hovered low over the ground, glowing faintly, like early morning mist touched by moonlight. It drifted slowly between tufts of tall grass that swayed with such a relaxed rhythm. He wondered if they were moving at all. Lorian walked at his side, the small creature's steps noticeably slower than usual. Its tail moved lazily behind it, sweeping softly through the mist. "This," Lorian said with a long, relaxed exhale, "is the Valley of Slow Time. Nothing rushes here. Not the wind, not the light, not even thoughts. Many travelers pass through when their minds are too full." The wanderer nodded, already feeling the valley's influence washing over him. The subtle glow of the mist made him feel weightless in a quiet, comforting way. Each breath seemed to last a little longer than the one before. Birds glided overhead, strange, round-bodied birds with elegant wings, and even they moved slowly, drifting as though suspended on invisible strings. He stepped forward, and the mist parted gently around his legs. Each movement felt drawn out, softened, like walking underwater, but without resistance. Instead, it was like the air itself cushioned him, making every step float. "What is this place for?" he asked, though even speaking felt slower, calmer. Lorian stretched, making a tiny sound halfway between a hum and a purr. "It's for quieting the heart. Sometimes, when the world moves too quickly, you forget what your own rhythm sounds like. This valley lets you hear it again." They continued farther in until the valley opened into a glade where the grass grew shorter and shimmering stones lay arranged in a gentle spiral. The stones were smooth, glowing faintly with pale blues and soft greens. They gave off a subtle warmth he could feel even from a distance. He followed the spiral inward, each step loosening something inside him. A knot he hadn't realized was there, a lingering tension he had been carrying since waking at the forest's edge. At the center of the spiral lay a low, round pool filled with perfectly still water. The surface was reflective, but not like normal water. When he leaned over, he didn't simply see his face. He saw himself as he felt, calm, wandering, open. The reflection shimmered, more like a dream image than a real one. Lorian dipped a paw into the pool, causing only the faintest ripple. "This pool shows your inner pace," the creature explained softly. "Many rush without knowing they're rushing. Many tire without knowing why. But when you look here, you see yourself as you truly are before the noise." The wanderer lowered himself to sit beside the pool. The grass beneath him felt soft, like cushions of warm moss. He watched the surface shift subtly, not from any wind, but from the slow blooming of gentle colors beneath the water. Muted violets, hazy golds, pale greens blending like watercolor strokes. "You're settling," Lorian murmured. "Your spirit is matching the valley's pace." The wanderer didn't speak. There was no need to. The quiet itself seemed to speak for him. Above them, the sky transitioned into deeper shades of blue, though he wasn't sure if it was truly evening or just the valley slowing the light. Time here didn't feel like something that passed, but rather something that drifted around them like the mist. After a long while, Lorian curled up against his side, letting out a small, content sigh. "You should know," the creature said dreamily, "that many who pass through this place, well, they don't want to leave. It's easy to sleep here for hours, or days, or longer." The wanderer smiled, lifting his hand to rest gently on Lorian's warm fur. "I can see why," he whispered. They rested there, letting the valley hold them in its slow embrace. Even the distant chirping of insects seemed stretched out, each sound lengthening into a soft melodic echo. A faint breeze drifted across the glade in long, smooth waves, brushing the surface of the pool and sending rippling patterns of color across the ground. And then, as naturally as waking from a nap, the wanderer felt a gentle shift inside him, a sign that he was ready to move again. Not hurriedly, not because he needed to, but simply because the valley had given him what he came for. He stood slowly, savoring the lingering calm that clung to him like a gentle scent. Lorian rose too, shaking out its fur in a slow, relaxed motion. "Feel better?" the creature asked. "Much," he answered softly. Together, they stepped out of the spiral of stones, the mist parting to let them through. The valley remained quiet behind them, a place out of time, continuing its silent, endless lullaby for whatever travelers might next need its peace. As they reached the far edge of the valley, the air grew a bit lighter, and their movements subtly regained their natural pace. But the calm stayed with him, inside his chest, inside his breath. He glanced back once, and the valley shimmered gently in return, as though giving him a slow, serene farewell. Then, he and Lorian continued onward, deeper into the lands where dreams and waking paths intertwined. Chapter 32. The Lantern Marsh. The land gradually sloped downward again, and the air shifted, still calm but cooler, carrying the faint scent of water and wildflowers. The wanderer and Lorian followed a narrow footpath lined with smooth stones mottled in pale blues and greens. Ahead, a quiet glow drifted upward, soft and flickering like distant candles. As they drew closer, it became clear that the path was leading them into a marsh, but not the sort one might expect. There was no mud, no thick fog, no buzzing insects. Instead, the ground was covered in a soft, springy moss that glowed faintly under each step. Thin waterways wound through the marsh in gentle curving lines, their surfaces smooth and still as glass. And above them floated small glowing orbs, hundreds of them. Some drifted slowly just above the water, others bobbed against reeds or hovered near the moss. They glowed in warm shades of amber, gentle gold, pale pink, and soft lavender. None were bright. All were warm, comforting, like lanterns made of dreams rather than flame. The wanderer paused with a soft breath. "It's beautiful," he murmured, watching one orb drift lazily past his hand. Lorian's ears perked, the creature visibly happy to be here. "This is the Lantern Marsh," Lorian said, voice low and reverent. "One of the safest places in all the dreaming lands. These lanterns are actually living beings, harmless, shy, but very curious." The wanderer crouched, letting a tiny lavender lantern drift near his palm. It pulsed gently, as if greeting him. It made no sound, only a very soft vibration, like the purring of a distant star. "What do they do?" he asked. "They carry away unrest," Lorian replied simply. The wanderer looked at him. "Unrest?" Lorian nodded and tapped lightly on the nearest glowing orb. It bobbed in place, then drifted closer to the wanderer's chest, hovering right before his heart. For a moment, nothing happened, and then he felt a soft warmth spreading through him, like a gentle hand smoothing away a crease. The lantern drifted back after a few seconds, glowing a shade warmer than before. "They feed on worries," Lorian explained. "Little ones, The kind people forget they're even holding on to. They're not strong, but they help. The wanderer felt a looseness in his chest that he hadn't realized was missing. They walked slowly through the marsh, the glowing orbs drifting alongside them like a quiet procession. Some lit the path ahead, while others followed behind, their colors shifting with the breeze. For a place so open, the marsh felt cocoon-like, sheltered by the warm light. Reeds stood tall around the waterways, their tips glowing faintly as lanterns brushed past them. Small ripples spread across the water when the wanderer stepped on the mossy banks, and tiny fish with shimmering, translucent fins darted beneath the surface. A dragonfly passed by, if it could even be called that. Its wings were long, trailing luminous streaks that faded slowly behind it, like brushstrokes painted through air. Every sound was soft, a gentle drip of water, a slow distant croak from a hidden creature, the whisper of a lantern brushing against a leaf. No harshness, no urgency, just a quiet hum of life at rest. At the marsh's center, they reached a broad, still pool. The water was dark but reflective, like polished obsidian. Dozens of lanterns floated above it, creating a gentle constellation of shimmering lights. Lorian hopped up onto a smooth stone at the water's edge. "This is a place many wanderers use to sleep," the creature said. "The lanterns often gather around anyone resting here. They give warmth, and they keep nightmares away." The wanderer knelt and touched the water. It was cool but calm, as though it held its own heartbeat far beneath the surface. He sat on a patch of thick moss, letting the warmth of nearby lanterns soothe the last remaining tension in his mind. A soft amber lantern drifted close, brushing lightly against his shoulder. Another settled beside him like a glowing pebble. Lorian curled up next to him, tail wrapped around its tiny body. The wanderer didn't sleep. Not yet, but he felt the kind of rest that comes before sleep. A deep and steady quiet spreading through him. "You know," Lorian murmured, "some say the lanterns remember those who pass through. They follow the memory of your warmth, long after you're gone." The wanderer smiled softly. "That's a comforting thought." The marsh dimmed slightly, not darkening but settling into a deeper, gentler glow. Lanterns pulsed around them, their light rising and falling like a slow, collective breath. For a long time, they stayed there, breathing with the marsh, resting in its gentle rhythms, letting the floating lights bathe them in warmth. Eventually, when they rose to continue their journey, several lanterns drifted after them for a short while, as if reluctant to let them go. The wanderer reached out and touched one farewell. It pulsed warmly and drifted back toward the pool, returning to its quiet watch over the marsh. Lorian led the way up a gentle slope, and the warm glow faded behind them. The Lantern Marsh remained still, peaceful and softly glowing, another dreamlike haven in the wandering traveler's slowly unfolding journey. Chapter 33. The Path of Soft Echoes. Beyond the Lantern Marsh, the ground rose into a series of gentle hills covered in short, velvety grass. Each blade was so fine and pale that the land looked almost like a blanket of soft, moon-washed fabric. The wanderer and Lorian walked without hurry, their footsteps cushioned by the ground's softness. A faint breeze swept across the hills, carrying with it a peculiar sound, very quiet, like whispers drifting through hollow shells. It was not eerie, though. more like something curious, old and sleepy. Lorian's ears twitched. "We're coming into the path of soft echoes," the creature explained. "It's a place where sound doesn't behave like it does elsewhere. It slows, it softens, it remembers." The wanderer listened again. The breeze passed gently around him, and he heard it, a faint echo of his own footsteps, but delayed, as though the earth wanted time to consider the sound before releasing it back into the air. He lifted his foot and stepped forward. There it was again, a second, softer step, following him. "It's harmless," Lorian said, hopping onto a smooth stone. "This place tends to hold onto gentle noises. A laugh, a whisper, a sigh. You may hear things from earlier, or even from other travelers who passed long ago." The wanderer smiled at the idea. He exhaled slowly, and a few breaths later, he heard his breath return, quieter, like a memory of the original. They continued onward, and the hills began to narrow into a soft valley. Along the path, small white flowers bloomed, dozens and dozens of them, each with petals shaped like tiny cups. When the wind passed over them, they chimed ever so faintly, creating a delicate tinkling chorus. It didn't sound like music, more like gentle, half-forgotten thoughts, humming softly to themselves. "This valley helps some travelers understand how far they've come," Lorian said. "Not through visions, but through hearing pieces of their own journey drifting back to them." As if responding to his words, a new echo floated across the path, a distant, softened chime. The wanderer paused, recognizing it. It was the sound of the whispering orchard's silver leaves, but slower, calmer, like a memory being rediscovered in a dream. He closed his eyes, letting the echo wash over him. When he opened them again, the path widened into a clearing where tall stones stood in gentle curves. They looked like markers, though not graves, more like milestones along a road no one hurried to finish. Each stone had a hollow near its top, carved like the opening of a flute. Lorian hopped up onto one. "These are echo stones," the creature explained. "Winds passing through them play the memories of the land. Old sounds drift inside and get held there, echoing softly for many years." The wanderer leaned closer to listen. A faint hum resonated inside one stone, followed by the sound of water dripping. Then a bird's slow, drawn-out call. Then silence. Another stone whispered the swaying of grass from perhaps centuries before. Another repeated a soft fluttering laugh. Someone's gentle joy preserved like a warm imprint in air. And then, from a stone near the center, he heard something unexpected. His own voice. From earlier that day, just a single word. Beautiful. Spoken in a breath of awe within the Lantern Marsh. The echo returned now as a soft sigh, as though the land itself agreed. He smiled, touched by the quiet simplicity of it. Lorian stretched lazily, then hopped down from the stone. "Echoes don't last forever," he said. "But the land keeps only the peaceful ones, the calmest moments, the quietest joys. That way, anyone passing through will only ever hear gentle things, and never something that might disturb their rest." They walked onward, leaving the standing stones behind. The path gradually ascended again, and the echoes became softer until they faded completely. The grass grew longer, and the flowers more sparse. At the top of the hill, the wanderer looked back. The valley shimmered faintly in the moonlight. the echo stones glowing with the softest traces of their captured sounds. The breeze brushed across the land, and he thought he heard one last whisper. His own breath from earlier returned to him like a lullaby. He continued walking, Lorian at his side, the night around them settling into another stretch of calm, limitless quiet. As the wanderer leaves the echo stones behind, their gentle whispers fade into the night. Yet the calm they carried lingers, like a memory resting softly in the air. If this quiet journey brought you peace, or helped your thoughts settle into stillness, don't forget to subscribe and leave a like. Part 3 is on its way, where the path continues, and new echoes await in the deep, dreaming forest.